So I wanted to profile the deck that I used this last weekend at the Kingslayer Cards 1K event for Overdress. There was 86 players, and I was not part of the top 16. I was not part of the top 8. Oh my, I did so bad. Well, like, I didn't do like, oh, you know, sometimes you just go in there, you think you got the spice, and then you just get over triggered like 2 rounds in a row, and oh, that just brought my confidence way low. I didn't even want to do the video. Like, oh, I lost so bad at that tournament. I honestly didn't feel like I deserved subscribers. But shout out to one of the people that beat me though, Tuan Vo, I believe, is the way I pronounce his name. I'm sorry, bud, if I say it wrong. I'm really bad with names. He told me he watched my channel, and I was like, I was so salty after our match because he overtriggered me twice, and I was like, oh damn, now I feel like a piece of shit. But shout outs to you, buddy. Congratulations on your top. But I did go 4-3. Before we get into the profile, I do have in a book right here, I put my wins and losses. So, round 1, I fought against my buddy's Orphis deck. Orphis is like his favorite thing in Overdress, so there was no way he wasn't playing that. I 2-0'd him. Round 2, I fought against my buddy's Magnolia deck, so it was basically just like, for the first few rounds, it was basically just locals. I 2-0'd him. I just like dirty rushed him, and he didn't get any defensives. Round 3, what was it? What was that? That was when I fought, that's when I fought Vo. And he just got me with the over trigger. Like, it was a little bit discomfort because I never, like, he forced it into like a grind game scenario because he was damage denying me in the early, which like kind of hurts. Like, I could still kind of play the game, but like I'm not able to like push as much as I want to. But I did get him back though. I did get him back in one game. I hit my own over trigger. Like, the past turn he hit his defensive over trigger, and then my turn I'm like, well, I hit my over trigger and just dealt him 2 damage, and that was the game. Round 4 was I versed against Magnolia. I was in a winning position both games, and then I got drove checked over trigger, and it ended the game. Both games, and it was just very sad. And then round 5, I lost to this guy playing Barrel Magnus. I really liked his list. He was playing the Pony instead of Brain Swirler. I don't know if he was running Brain Swirler. I didn't see any Brain Swirlers from like the cards that we fought. But he beat me fair and square. There was like a judge mishap, but it was a complete misunderstanding. Again, I want to apologize on my part. But he beat me fair and square. I got 1 game off of him, but that was the over trigger, so I really can't say much. Then round 6 was against my other buddy playing Tamayura. I dirty 2-0'd him. I rushed him and sacked him. We were just both not having a sexy day. That's all I really got to say about that. And then round 7 was against Naru Samurai. Shoutouts to him. I rushed him and sacked him. There's really not much to say there. He didn't really get anything on the defensive crackback. Like, I think he went first both times, but like, he just didn't have a hand to guard to face with me checking at least 1 critical trigger every turn. But that was my rounds for the tournament. I went 4-0. Notably, all my wins were 2-0. I think that's part of the reason why I'm still profiling this deck, even though I didn't do that well. But notably, all my wins were 2-0, and then 2 of my wins were to the over trigger. So there was just something that I just couldn't. I can't play around it. There's no way to play around it. So let's get into the profile. I was playing PBO. Let's go on to the grade 3s. I think I have enough space where I could just leave the ride line like that. Yeah, I think that looked pretty sexy. I was maxing out on Persona Ride and then maxing out on 4 copies of PBD. I didn't want to run PBD. I thought about it just so I could have extra space in the deck, but I didn't want to run PBD in the ride line because of how fast the format is. I want to go straight into PBO and then just smack my opponent 4 times, or like smack him with a crit if I'm able to put PBD in Soul. So that's I think 7, these 7 are perfect. I wouldn't run any more grade 3s. I wouldn't run any less. I know there are some good grade 3s. I know there was a PBO list that topped. They were running the grade 3 that was Soul Blast 1, check the top card. You gotta leave it on top or call it in the same column. But I liked my list the way it was. Like, I thought it was very unique. I didn't see anyone else playing it, and it did what I built it to do. So that's it for that. Going on to the 2s, I maxed out on 4 copies of Maka. Not Maka, 4 copies of Nemain. Nemain is just very strong. Like, this deck wouldn't be playable at all with Nemain. Obviously, the easiest combo is Nemain, put PBD in Soul to give your PBO a crit, and then you just draw 2 free cards. It's just a very staple card. You need this card at 4. There were so many times off the ride line that I sacked this card on top, and instead of giving myself a drive check, I just, let me just draw 2 free cards, essentially. It was a free body on board, and then 2 free cards in hand. It was just insane. But yeah, you kind of have to run this card at 4. It's essentially the whole deck because it's the easiest way to kickstart your engine to get yourself a crit. And you do use Soul. You do use quite a bit of Soul. Like the only card in this deck that's Soul Blast, well, technically PBO Soul Blast, but the only card in this deck that's Soul Blast is I ran 4 Darkness Maiden Maka. She put in so much work. She's just a very good in combination with Charon. Like, this is basically a Charon deck because especially if I'm going second. There was times like pre-mulligan, like if I opened up with Charon and Maka, I'd rather keep that and just instead of just trying to hard mull for the PBD to shove in Soul with Maka, just because like this deck's rush is like pure insanity. I was Charoning people turn 1. If I was going second, I was Charoning them turn 2, turn 3. I was like, this deck is literally abuse the Charon Maka combo deck. But in the prison matchup, it also put in quite a bit of work just because every time I called her, she's just a free 15k beater. So I really do like to max out on copies of her. She's the only card that uses Soul, which is fine because the other deck, like, it had like Soul problems because you would call from Soul and then you use Soul with her. So I don't have to choose. Like, all my Soul always goes to Maka. And then for my last grade 1, I was running 1 extra dark in the main. Ooh, you can't see that. Never. But I'll put it right here. I was running 1 extra dark in the main deck. I was running 3 darks, but there was so many three darks in the main deck. But there was so many times that it was just dead. Like, it was a dead card. And I knew I didn't want to run none in the main deck in case I fought against Ava or in case I fought against prison. I wasn't able to get it out of the prison. And it wouldn't mess up my attack lines. So I decided to play just 1 in the main deck. And honestly, it worked out. Like, every time I saw it, like, I wasn't mad that I saw it. Like, the 1-of did come in clutch. I was able to utilize it when I did see it. Or just, you know, shove it into Soul with Nemain, or just pitch it for ride fodder. So I wasn't mad at the 1-of. I would honestly just keep it at 1. I wouldn't run it any more or run it any less. Is there a way of, let's see here, because I don't think I have. Let me see how I can do this. And then I ran 4 of, I don't even know this card's name. This dark elf chick. Night of Desolation. I ran 4 of Night of Desolation, and then I ran 4 Karens. So basically, your early game strategy was. Ooh, let me just. How can I put that? So I think that's fine. Basically, your early game strategy is you want to rest Karen, either call a Night of Desolation off the top because this is an 18k beater if there's nothing in the same column as it. Or rest Karen, there's a trigger on top, okay, leave it on top, call 1 or 2 Nights of Desolation, and then basically you're just swinging for like massive pressure in the early stages of the game, which decks, like the top decks in the meta currently, which is Magnolia and Seraph Snow, don't necessarily like to be put on that type of pressure in the early stages of the game. So that was essentially part of my strategy of how to beat those decks, because I was struggling really hard to beat those decks because I was more focusing on getting the main and PBD, so I really wasn't having much of an early game. Yes, I would play on turn 3, which is technically a turn earlier than they would get to play ideally, but I wasn't able to close out games. They would always grind me out. So the easiest answer to that problem was just dirty rush them. Dirty rush them on turn 1, dirty rush them on turn 2, dirty rush them on turn 3. And that's what I built my deck to do. I built my deck to play on every turn of the game until hopefully my opponent dies. But that's the essential idea of it. I do think that Shadow Paladins in D format right now, even though I know Orphist has a really good rush as well, this Shadows has the best rush because it's able to build a board, rush, and still maintain some semblance of a hand, while Orphist can't necessarily do that. Or at least right now, because I know Orphist has a very weak hand right now. But that's the main reasonings why I run. Oh, another main reason I was running Night of Desolation, not just because it's an 18k beater by itself, 28 with Persona Ride, but also, you see that number right there? That number's 8. It is 8, which means if I put a Maka in front of Night of Desolation, that's swing for 23. 33 with Persona Rides. So that's another reason why I was playing, in the tournament, I was playing 2 of these. I'm going to show you the card that I subbed out for it right now, but it just never really worked out. This was I was running this as a just-in-case scenario that I never had the 2 to pop. I could just pop this, but every time I saw this, I just wished that it was 8k instead of 5k, like any 8k. So I did take this out of my deck. For the rest of the ones, let me just put this here. Running 4 PGs. You really have to max out on these PGs. There's really not much to say. And, ooh, that's a little bit of a nasty glare. I don't think it's too bad. And then the card that I was running Burner at, I was running Burner at 2 for the tournament, but I decided to take it out for. I took it out for Diffuser Angel. Now, the reason that I really wished I played this during the tournament, like this would have been a game changer during the tournament. The reason that I really like Diffuser Angel in this deck is because, number 1, it's another way to put PBD into Soul without counterblasting. And then number 2, its effect is it gives 5k to himself and 5k to your Vanguard till the end of turn. So your Vanguard would be swinging base, like if your opponent's on grade 3 or greater. Your Vanguard with its effect, PBO, will be swinging base 23 with a crit. You Persona on 33 with a crit. If you have this, it becomes 28 with a crit. It becomes 38 with a crit. With a booster, it becomes, like, what? Usually I would have Karen behind my Vanguard, so instead of swinging 30 or 40, it would be 35 or 45. So I really like Diffuser Angel. Like, this is, like, the best tech slot in the deck because it also, like, again, Diffuser Angel also gives himself 5k. I did not know this. If I knew this, I would have played it. Because Diffuser Angel with Maka, that's a 28k column. 38k column with Persona Ride. Like, this card is honestly a game changer. Like, I'm running this in my Thagrea build too. Because Thagrea has trouble making, like, high number columns. But this is actually a game changer. I wouldn't run it at any more than 2 copies. I feel like 2 is the perfect number because it is searchable off of Maka. And you do kind of deep draw with your Nemains. And like I said, this is a way better 2 slot than the 2 that I was running, which was 2 burners for the tournament. I was running 2 burners, but they did nothing during the whole tournament. This was the only card in my whole deck that I was not happy with. Like, it actually felt like a dead card in the deck. But everything else, wowzers. Everything else was wow. Like, I built the deck to do something, and it did it. That's the only thing I can say about the tournament was I was happy with my list. Or, except for those 2 cards. I was happy with everything else in my list except those 2 cards. Onto the triggers. Where can I put the triggers? I guess I'll just put them right here. Yeah, right here is fine. I was running 4 normal heals. The reason that I wasn't running effect heals, either of the effect heals, was this is my logic with the effect heals. I feel like you can afford to run the effect heals if you're running fronts. Because fronts generally give you more shield power overall. But this deck can't afford to run fronts because I need draws. If I don't see Nemains, draws to help me draw into my pieces. So that's why I was just running 4 regular heals. At least for this format, I don't feel like the effect heals are necessary. It's more of like a tech slot if you can afford it, which I feel like the decks that can afford to run fronts are the decks that can afford to run at least 1 or 2 copies of those new effect heal triggers. And then onto the crits. Nothing much to say. I ran 8 crit because I wanted to, again, my strategy was to end the game as fast as possible, and those 8 critical triggers helped me do that. And then, again, the 3 draws, there was times that my deck did get very low, but I never decked out. I won or I lost. I've never decked out with this deck. I feel 3 draws are perfect because you do need the 8 criticals in the deck to just finish off games, especially if your opponent says no guard to your PBO. You check a crit, you just dealt 3 damage in 1 swing. So especially in the early game, so crucial that when I used Karen's ability, oh, it's a crit, leave it on top, and it exudes so much pressure from the early game onwards. And then for the over trigger that I used for this this tournament, honestly, this worked out way better than I thought it did. This over trigger in the deck did so much more work than the Keter over trigger. There were so many times that I checked this over trigger, and if it was the Keter over trigger, I would have lost. And that over trigger I'm running is, what's this card's name? Spiritual King of Determination, Olberia. Now this is the Cray Elemental over trigger. You might not know, but the Cray Elemental over trigger's ability is when you check it, choose its ability. Of course, gives 100 million to a unit, but its additional effect is choose another unit and give it 100 million. And there was times that I checked this, like my game against Vo. In game 2, my only out was checking the over trigger because he was at 4 damage, and he didn't have any more PGs in hand. And luckily for me, he didn't heal either, and I was just able to close out the game. But there was just in-play testing against Magnolia, against Snow, like those really like high-tier decks. The Keter Overtrigger did nothing for me because the Keter Overtrigger relied you on checking more triggers on top of itself, and my rear guards were mostly grade 2s. Like, sure, Blaster Dart could get a drive check if I used his ability, but that's only if I used his ability. So most of the time, there'd be only 1 extra check. But this, like I said, it put in a lot of work, and I feel like the point of the over trigger is to close out the game, not to try and, like, snowball advantage. This deck already snowballs advantage. Whenever I checked this card, it helped me close out the game. Like, against, what round was it? Round 5? Round 6? I fought against the Barrow Magnus player. I literally checked this. I think it was turn 3 or turn 4. Gave 2 of my rear guards 100 million. He had no more PGs. He had to take 2 damage. It's like guaranteed 2 damage. And that's why I played this one. Because, like I said, it's the over trigger. It's meant to finish the game. And this is exactly what this card does for me in the deck. Finish the game. Sorry if this profile was a little bit long-winded. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to be profiling a bunch of new decks because obviously a bunch of new decks did come out Festival and with Set 5. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Shoutouts to Gio. I got this mat off of him. He made this from scratch. He made this entire mat by himself, painted it and everything, photoshopped it and everything. So I wanted to thank him for that. And yeah, later.